On today's NABJ News, the COVID-19 pandemic still disrupting traditional plans, including back to school. Coming up, we explore the state of vaccine mandates, how policy changes could finally get us back to normal.
Also ahead, we discuss all things NABJ related, including the tenure of President Dorothy Tucker and where you'll see coast-to-coast coverage of Black and Brown communities. We take you inside the Black News Channel. NABJ News starts right now.
I'm Kiana Stevenson.
And I'm Kyrie Cook. Welcome to NABJ News, and thank you for joining us today. We begin with President Biden's latest COVID-19 remarks and policy. He says COVID-19 boosters are ready for finalization, authorization by FDA, CDC, and ACIP, the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices. Booster shots are set to begin this week of September 20th. President Biden also says all nursing home workers and those who deal with Medicare and Medicaid enrollees must be vaccinated.
And as authorities work to reduce the infection rate, several states and territories now have mask mandates. The CDC reminds everyone masks can help stop the spread, especially for those not vaccinated and under the age of 12. Several universities are requiring all students, faculty, and staff to be vaccinated if returning to campus in the fall. Reporter Chloe Godbold finds out the opinions and upcoming plans surrounding this mandate at the University of Michigan.
Erin English attends the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. She calls the vaccine mandate
a very positive thing. I feel like it is a very good safety measure.
Her campus is on a growing list with the vaccine mandate for all students, faculty, and staff returning in the fall. The Chronicle of Higher Education identified over 700 schools who are requiring vaccines. But students like Tynetta Harris won't take the vaccine.
I am a Muslim in the Nation of Islam, and in the Nation of Islam, we don't take vaccines.
That concerns religious studies professor Dr. Terry Laws.
What I hope that persons don't do is ask for religious exemptions when, in fact, it is really fear or some other form of not being informed that is actually part of why they're asking for a religious exemption.
Students and staff at the University of Michigan can request an exemption for valid medical and religious reasons, or a temporary postponement of the vaccine. If approved, they must have a weekly COVID test.
The vaccine and face coverings are the most effective way for us to maintain a healthy and safe environment for our campus.
Many businesses are requiring proof of vaccination in order to enter their buildings. CNN is reporting some of these companies to be Google, Morgan Stanley, and Walgreens. In Dearborn, Michigan, Chloe Godbold, NABJ News.
As schools reopen for in-person learning across the country, there's concern about issues beyond a mask. Some Philadelphia parents worry about the return of kids to an in-person learning and the possibility of violence in the classroom.
Oh, wow. Now, if you live in Philadelphia, chances are you may have heard of the Instagram account No Gun Zone. The page, which has amassed over 242,000 followers, posts daily about gun violence awareness. One particular post, posted by the owner himself, posed a question to both the city and the school district, asking how they would deal with the potential influx of violence stemming from almost a year of virtual learning. Concerned parents flooded the comments, with many sharing that they were nervous or would rather their child just stay virtual.
Philadelphia community leader Anton Moore has talked with parents in his community. He says that isolation and social media play a big role.
You got parents who are worried because, a lot of the kids, they're beefing over the summer. You get what I'm saying? With social media, and they're not seeing each other. So now you're putting these kids back in an environment with the people that they beefing with. So now that becomes an issue because parents are wondering, should I send my kid to that school? Or you got some parents praying that they do virtual school.
gun violence is currently surging in Philadelphia with over 300 homicides already this year. Moore says this does not help the issue at all. NABJ voters will take a critical look at President Dorothy Tucker's work over the past 2 years as they decide whether they will support her re-election efforts. Reporter Samantha Sherry takes us through Tucker's tenure.
NABJ members saw two expressions on Dorothy Tucker's face: her joy after her election as president and her determination to advocate for Black journalists. But then the pandemic hit.
There were times that there was an agenda set that we had to pivot.
She promised more hardship scholarships, which led to COVID-19 relief grants.
We've simply said to our members, if you need a little help to pay your rent, to pay your school loan, to tide you over until you find that next job, we are here.
She also went to bat for journalists facing racism in newsrooms.
There is a cultural problem going on that needs to be addressed, and we need you to, at the top, demand change, demand that there are more Black managers in top positions, make some promotions, get rid of some of the bad apples.
Tucker says she's running for a second term to tackle pay inequity. She also wants to grade newsrooms based on their ability to hire, promote, and retain Black journalists.
I'm proud of NABJ, and I've said it before, it has been really an honor to have served during this time.
If Tucker is successful in a re-election campaign, she would be the second person to hold 2 terms as NABJ president. Reporting from Ocoee, Florida, Samantha Sherry, NABJ News. Now an update about NABJ's finances. Treasurer Walter Smith Randolph says last year's virtual convention helped the organization's bottom line. NABJ received aid from grant and scholarship funding plus sponsorships within the last year. Randolph says now the net surplus for NABJ is up by $300,000. He says the extra money allowed the organization to split the money between COVID relief funds, scholarships, grants, and fellowships. And he predicts NABJ could see another surplus after this year's convention. You'll find more details on NABJ's finances Saturday at nabjmonitor.com.
U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris made a special appearance at this year's NABJ virtual convention as she commended the important work of Black journalists and freedom of the press. The first Black female vice president spoke to members at the NABJ Newsmaker plenary, where she says diversity is crucial to the industry. She praised Black journalists for their work on stories affecting communities of color, like the COVID pandemic and the anti-voting bill aimed at disenfranchising Black voters during local national elections.
Whatever your story, it is clear that NABJ members are united in purpose. You are surpassing the bar for journalistic excellence, breaking stories and providing analysis on the most pressing issues of our time.
Vice President Harris went on to thank NABJ members and ensured that both she and President Biden are fully committed to defending the freedom of the press here in the United States around the world.
We are connected, engaged. From the moment we rise, we move, we adjust, we learn, explore, relax, and grow together. So we're ready to build a better tomorrow. Stay informed throughout your day with the Spectrum News app, exclusively for Spectrum customers.
We recently introduced concerns from the LGBTQ community and the ways organization leaders have enacted policy change. Our coverage continues now with a look at how NABJ could work on issues of importance to queer members. Kaylin Razor reports.
On Thursday, we heard from NABJ leaders on the progress made within the past year on LGBTQ+ issues. Today, we'll find out just what those actions meant for the task force and what they'd like to see addressed in the future.
Recognizing queer efforts is a focal point of the task force. Travell Anderson, Region 4 Director, published a 2-part oral history of the LGBTQ+ task force. It highlighted founding members who fought early on to make the organization more inclusive for queer journalists. Back in 2005, it was a struggle for them to even get approval from the board to create the task force. Founding San Diego chapter president Jerry McCormick says Tucker's statement was a real indicator of progress for the community.
So for the president of the organization to openly recognize and say that this is a safe space for LGBTQ members, I mean, that shows how far we've come in the 40 plus years since the organization has been in existence.
Anderson would like to see more done in the future.
I have personally emailed my co-board members and told them my pronouns, told them how to use them in sentences, and I'm still misgendered every single time we meet.
President Dorothy Tucker says NABJ being an LGBTQ+ safe space is a must.
It was a learning experience for me. Sometimes it was uncomfortable because I didn't really know all of the phrases or the words or the perceptions that might be borderline offensive, but I was so appreciative of how patient they were. If Travell and Femi and members of the task force, if there were things happening when they came to me, then that's reason enough for me to stop and do something about it.
1 year later, the conversation about queer issues is just as loud and present as it was before. LGBTQ+ members have kept community efforts at the forefront of the task force's focus and utilized their leadership positions to enact policy change. Now that it's all on the table, time will tell if updates were effective. But for now, the fight continues. In New York, Kaylin Razor, NABJ News.
The Crown, or Creating a Respectful and Open World for Natural Hair Act, prohibits race-based hair discrimination within work and educational places based on hair texture or protective styles. Reporter Chloe Godbold shows us how it's changing the way some journalists wear their hair on air and in the newsroom.
You can see the smiles and hear the laughter caught on camera during NABJ's Miami convention, letting you know the joy Black journalists feel when their hair is worn naturally.
Because straightened hair like this is what's often expected in a newsroom, especially for those who appear on camera.
We are just so used to code switching, and we're used to it. Like, we're about to start a new job, let's straighten our hair. We're about to do this, let me take our braids out. But why are we doing that?
Now there's change in the air and hair as states and cities adapt the Crown Act, prohibiting discrimination based on hairstyles.
It's amazing to see attention finally come to people wearing their natural hair on air, especially for women of color.
Reporter Dana White is one of the women celebrating her natural hair in the Miami convention video.
Good coworkers makes a huge difference because you know you're supported.
13 out of 37 states have made the Crown Act law, with other states having legislation filed but not passing.
Each state needs kind of someone like a lawmaker to spearhead the effort.
They're among the women now embracing and wearing their natural hair on air. They want other journalists to know.
It doesn't matter what your hair looks like. As long as you're professional, your hair is professional.
Don't be afraid to be yourself. You shouldn't have to change yourself for a job.
Expectations about hair on the air may vary depending on where you're working. For more information, visit crownact.com/about. In Southfield, Michigan, Chloe Godbold, NABJ News.
Black female journalists often deal with more than racism. Some report discrimination based on their weight and complexion. Kiana Stevenson explains how these issues take effect in newsrooms.
The look on print journalist Demetria Mosley's face reflects her frustration after a former boss implied she was lazy despite completing assignments.
Why in the world would you think that I was lazy?
Mosley recognized it as anti-fat bias. People often call it fat phobia, but experts say calling it a phobia is harmful and can lead to confusion.
It's not a fear. It's somebody's personal thoughts or feelings of my unworthiness.
Safira Martin is a choreographer and former social media producer. She says it appears some media companies practice colorism.
The lighter skinned girl is the face of the company, as opposed to the brown skinned girl is working behind the scenes and working the boards, but she has the same talent.
But change is on the way, as shown by this Vogue magazine. Kiana Stevenson, NABJ TV News. There is a bill in the Ohio House of Representatives that could restrict the discussion of race in K-12 classrooms. Similar bills in 23 states would ban what they call teaching, advocating, or promoting divisive concepts. In Toledo, where schools are predominantly Black, leaders say they will not shy away from critical conversations with students about race. Diversity leaders at Toledo schools are hoping that the efforts to restrict conversations of race and current racism in America will fail in Ohio.
Still to come on NABJ News, we'll hear from Octavia Johnson in the Weather Center, giving us a look at what each region is expecting this week. Stay tuned.
We can change this world for the better. I'm just a ball player. You a hero.
We are the chosen ones.
It's raining cats and dogs here in Atlanta, but some people might be basking in the sunshine. Octavia, what is it like where you are?
Well, Kiana, the weather can change a lot in Virginia. Here are the national weather updates for those joining the convention. If you live in the Region 1 area under Torrey Parish, which includes 14 states that stretches from Maine through Connecticut, New York, and Pennsylvania, over to Virginia and West Virginia, that's the blue area, where some places are warm and cloudy, while others have a strong chance of scattered thunderstorms. Make sure to stay dry if you plan to go out in between sessions at the convention. Now let's check out Region 2, which includes 13 states under SIA New Yorker. That's the yellow area where our members from North Dakota through Missouri and Wisconsin through Kentucky can continue to enjoy the nice weather with low chances of rain and a lot of sunshine. Some areas in Region 3 under Rod Carter, which is the red area with 12 states, including Texas, the original location of the convention, are sunny, while others may have some chance of rain like Alabama and Georgia. Now, when you take a look at the green area of Region 4 under Travell Anderson, which includes Alaska through Wyoming, some areas are similar to Region 2 with some sunshine, while others are cloudy with low chance of rain. Any members who are thinking about heading out into this nice weather, don't stay out for too long. There's still a lot of sessions to attend. That's all for today's updates on the national weather forecast. I hope the weather is good on your side, Kyrie.
Thank you, Octavia, for that weather update. This past year has been full of trauma and loss for all of us, but it's been especially heartbreaking for the NABJ family. This year, we have experienced the loss of beloved members of NABJ, and tonight, we want to shed light on their lives and impact on our organization. That will live on forever.
3 months into the new year, the NABJ family was rocked by the sudden passing of 36-year-old journalist and mentor Marshall Lattimore. Remembered as a force in his work as the executive director of the Atlanta Voice newspaper and as a dedicated mentor with NABJ student projects. One of Marshall's former mentees, Sierra Porter, says he helped jumpstart her career with his kindness and encouragement.
When I was applying to New York University to obtain my master's, I had reached out to Marshall's for a recommendation, and he had worked with me and things of that sort. And after I had gotten and got the scholarship and everything, he told me, go out there and do great things and stuff like that. And that was the last time I spoke to him before he passed away.
Uplifting last words from the Birmingham native that resonated with all young journalists that he helped during his time with NABJ. Many we spoke with say he was a kind-hearted leader whose goal was to educate, uplift, and spread knowledge to the next generation of young Black journalists. Ultimately, the gift that kept on giving.
But I would say Marshall had a very loving and nurturing presence about him. I think when I was working with Marshall, I felt very, very safe. So his legacy is, he called us like kiddos. We're like his kids in a way.
Speaking of father figure, former NABJ President Brian Monroe passed away in his Maryland home at the beginning of the year.
I lost my father, it'll be 6 years in January. But to make it plain, it took me back to the day I found out he passed. That's how close I was to Brian.
One of Monroe's mentees, Fox 5 DC journalist Marissa Mitchell, remembers him as a great mentor and friend, but most of all, a well-known journalist. Monroe is credited with being the last person to interview Michael Jackson before his death in 2009. Monroe taught at Harvard and Northwestern and is a former editor at CNN Politics. Mitchell was very fond of Monroe, even sharing with us that he made you feel like family.
Oh, wow. The last conversation, it was probably, I want to say he was barbecuing some ribs and he was asking me if I wanted to come over and get a plate.
The two shared a special father-daughter-like bond, which was important to her after the passing of her own father. They first crossed paths when Monroe was speaking at Northwestern University, where Mitchell was obtaining her master's in journalism. Since then, she says he was there for her every step of the way.
NABJ will never be the same because I was with him at all the NABJs. I think there was something special with me and Brian, but my lesson from him is to always give back and make yourself available.
Always giving back is a common theme among many of the members who we've lost this year. As the NABJ family continues to mourn the passing of Brian Monroe and Marshall Lattimore, we also remember many other great members and founders of this organization whom we miss dearly. May their contributions and memories be a blessing to NABJ. In Charlotte, North Carolina, Shamaria Massenberg, NABJ News.
Takeda is a global biopharmaceutical company committed to developing innovative therapies. And for 239 years, our main focus has been answering one question: how can we do more for our patients?
The Black News Channel is not your traditional newsroom. The company was founded in 2004 and looks to highlight the biggest Black-centric stories from across the country. NABJ's TV's Yao Bonsu has more on the historic organization.
But it just goes to show you how resilient and how strong Black people really are.
A Black newsroom.
There's a lot of white people who stank at their job too. They stank it up.
United by a common goal.
The mission and the goal is to feature and showcase men and women from Black and brown communities all across the country.
That is BNC, the outlet that isn't your typical news environment.
Here, if there's a mistake made, you don't necessarily have to deal with microaggression or labels or stereotypes.
Reporter Dre Clark and anchor Sharon Reed were both recruited by BNC president and CEO Princell Hare.
Whether it's Mark Lamont Hill or Sharon Reed or Charles Blow, you know, the ability to come to work, be your authentic self, and tell stories about our people through our lens. It's a very powerful motivator.
From local,
for example, I did a story on Haiti. You know, Brooklyn and New York City is home to the second largest Haitian population in the U.S.
to national news.
The Derek Chauvin trial. There was nothing fun about covering that trial, but I learned a lot about the pain.
Hare leads a charge towards a new standard of covering Black news.
And Princell believes in excellence, and that's something I very much appreciated.
And with workers spread across the country,
you know, we've had, you know, engineers go into our talent's homes, and they have installed cameras, they've installed teleprompters, lights, of course, and really everything that they need to broadcast. Studios. They've built studios in their homes.
The goal? Complete coverage of the Black community.
I look at it as the ground zero for what and where and how Black people are living. And I'm very proud of that.
Here's a story people will talk about. 3 new additions to a trusted language guide. Dictionary.com added child, y'all, and finna to its latest lineup of words you can look up with definitions. First heard mainly in the Black community, they're considered examples of Ebonics by some who champion standard English. But the managing editor of Dictionary.com says they added the words to document the evolution of the English language. He says dictionaries should record all words, no matter where they come from.
Child, please. On behalf of all of the students in the Student Multimedia Project, we want to thank all the mentors and the NABJ organization for their leadership and support.
And to view more of our stories that we covered, visit the NABJ Monitor at nabjmonitor.com or visit our NABJ social media pages.
I'm Kyrie Cook.
I'm Octavia Johnson.
And I'm Kiana Stevenson. Thanks for watching.